Hey Buckies, today we're going to go over some horror book recs, which are a little bit more genre specific than my fall rec videos. So if you're looking for general fall recs, go check that video out. This one, we're going to be talking about all the scares. So stay tuned if you want to learn more about that. Alright, so when I mean horror, I mean it gave me such a fright that I either had nightmares or when I talked to my friends it gave them nightmares. So here are some books that I just had on my bookshelf, ready to go. I don't even know like how many I have here in this stack. I have a slight collection going on now, now that I've tried to more genreify my bookshelves. But yeah, so let's go through what I have. The first off is Year of the Witchling. I know this has been in another video, but I cannot tell you how much I love this book. It is so good and so spooky. It gives me the witch vibes, and it gives me like Scarlet Letter vibes. It's so good. Like, you need to check it out if you haven't already. It's about this girl named Emmanuel, and I'm just going to read like the first paragraph. In the lands of Bethel, where the prophet's word is law, Emmanuel Moore's very existence is blasphemy. Her mother's union with an outsider of a different race cast her once proud family into disgrace. So Emmanuel does her best to worship the Father, follow holy protocol, and lead a life of submission, devotion, and absolute conformity like all the other women in the settlement, but a mishap lures her into the forbidden darkwood surrounding Bethel, where the first prophet once chased and killed 4 powerful witches. Their spirits are still lurking there, and they bestow a gift upon Emmanuel, the journal of her dead mother, who Emmanuel is shocked to learn once sought sanctuary in the woods. Fascinated by the secrets in the diary, Emmanuel finds herself struggling to understand how her mother could have consorted with witches. But when she begins to learn grim truths about the church and its histories, she realizes that the true threat to Bethel is its own darkness, and she starts to understand that if Bethel is to change, it must begin with her. Such a good book. Highly recommend it. I cannot just say that enough. The next one I have is Only If You Dare, which is 13 stories of doom and darkness. If you're looking for very short stories, I recommend these. They're not that spooky, but they're generally pretty good. And if you're looking for like short bedtime stories, especially for maybe like older kids, maybe you might want to check this one out. Next, I have Small Favors by Aaron A. Craig. Now, while I wouldn't say that this gave me nightmares, it certainly scared me a little bit when I was reading it. There is a lot of animal horror and animal gore in here, just to, and there's a whole list of trigger warnings that I have in my full review that you can find on Goodreads or my blog. But also, there's something lurking in the forest, and forests tend to freak me out to begin with. Mostly because of the bugs. But this is pretty spooky if you're looking for something. The twist is not my favorite, but it's still generally pretty good. Next, I have the Sabrina book series. These are generally set in between the seasons. So if you're watching Sabrina for the spooky season, you can also read these in between the seasons. It starts with Sabrina Path of Night, Sabrina Daughter of Chaos, and then Sabrina Season of the Witch. I think I got that in order, but I might have that backwards. Oh, I do. Okay, I think I have these backwards. Okay, so it has Sabrina Season of the Witch, Sabrina Path of Night, I think, is the next one. And then Sabrina Daughter of Chaos is the third one, I believe. Not entirely sure. My dogs are still trying to find, they're trying to find something. But yeah, so if you are binging the series, you might want to read these as well. They're not gory. Well, yeah, they're not as gory as the show. I'm trying to remember the show because it's been a hot mess since I watched it. But they do have its own element of horror, and it's a pretty good addition to the seasons. Next one I have is Eat Your Heart Out by Kelly DeVos, because you cannot have horror book recommendations without a zombie book. This is so good. So it follows Vivian, And unfortunately her parents are very they're very fat phobic. I'm just gonna cut to the chase. They're very fat phobic, and they send her to fat camp. But when she gets there, she realizes that something is amiss, and they're possibly experimenting on the other kids that are there. So, and then a zombie outbreak happens because because the experimental drug is causing zombie outbreaks. It was pretty good. Like, I actually really enjoyed this. I gave it a 5 out of 5. It's probably one of my favorite horror zombie books to date. And it has really good, it has a pretty good side romance if you're looking for that too. The next one I have is The Project by Courtney Summers. This is so spooky. So the book follows these two sisters. One is named Lo and the other one is named B. And after their family has been killed in an accident, they start getting visited by this guy who heads a cult. And so the book really follows, it's like a dual POV between them, and you start to figure out what happened to B during it. But a lot of cult horror, so if you're into that, if you're into horror from cults, or if you're into just reading books that have cults in them, this one I would recommend. This one because it's generally pretty spooky, and a little bit it gave me a little bit of a nightmare too. And the last one that I had that was on my shelves is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. This is not although a lot of it does take place during Abraham's youth. If you don't know the story, I honestly love Seth Grahame-Smith. He takes books, and this one basically a biography, and kind of twists them into horror. So he wrote Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, where he took the stories and he added zombies and sea monsters to that. This one, again, he adds vampire. So Abraham is growing up, and then he sees, I think it's his mother being killed by a vampire, and he takes his trusty axe and he starts becoming a vampire hunter. And on the way he friends one of the vampires themselves, and it is kind of quasi Interview with a Vampire, but I personally prefer this one better than Interview with a Vampire. I don't know what it is with Interview with the Vampire, but it gives me a little bit of the creeps. But so good. If you've not read Seth Grahame-Smith before, he is such a cool and fun writer to read. His books are pretty well written, but they're just fun. They're just fun to see what kind of twists he adds to them. So that is all of the books that I have for horror recs from my horror shelf. If you are interested in any of them, I definitely recommend Eat Your Heart Out and The Project. Those are my top recommendations out of this whole video. But anyways, pick up a horror book this season, freak yourself out a little bit, give yourself a nightmare, and tell me all about it in the comments. So, see you guys later. Bye!